guys, Jonathan Fields here at Candle 79 in New York City, and my guest today is founder and partner Bart Potenza. And we're going to just riff about this incredible thing that you've built over, I guess it started out back in 1988.
Yeah, we're in our 26th year now.
Right, for how many years is that? In New York City as a restaurant? Is
I
it
know.
equivalent of like 200 years or
Yeah,
something
you get like a 2-year window or a 5-year. If you don't make it,
Right.
you're usually done.
It is a brutal business in the city, yet you have thrived, not only thrived, but you have 2 restaurants, and the big news is
Building a third on the west side,
which
yeah.
is about to open in a matter of weeks right now.
Right.
So take me back to 1988, because you weren't already, this was not your whole lifetime journey. You were an art dealer for
I was an art dealer up until about 1977.
Got it.
And then I met a woman who changed my life, a different woman than Joy.
Right.
She was into organics and nutrition and all that. And she got me a job with what was called the Health Nuts chain in New York.
Yeah,
that was in
right.
1978. So I was there from 78 to 84. In 84 is when I bought and created the Healthy Candle, the first, the thing that lit up the Candle Cafe and Candle 79.
So that was the original incarnation.
Right.
Okay. And what was the idea behind it? I mean, because there are, New York's a big city. It's always had a ton of restaurants and great restaurants. So why bring something else into the market?
Well, I have to give credit to a lot of people who I met through the process. And in the beginning, I had an incredible chef partner who just taught me a lot about nutrition and health and well-being by serving good plant-based nutrition.
Yeah.
In the very beginning, we did serve cheese and eggs, but now we're strictly vegan and organic for about 18 years,
Right.
including our personal choice.
So it's really an outgrowth of how you chose to live.
Without a doubt. But I think I was open to the idea of receiving the wisdom of others who were there before me.
Right.
And I just went for it, mentoring kind of thing.
So what's that like, though? Okay, so you start out, just healthier, and then you go what some people would consider pretty hardcore, like
Right.
vegan. It's a very narrow thing. And in a world where businesses, even passion-driven businesses, restaurants are really tough, when you sort of narrow it into a slice which is
Right.
that narrow, is that does that make it easier or harder?
It's hard no matter how you put it. I mean, just the restaurant cliches everyone you can think about is true. My personal challenges around equipment and things breaking down at the last minute when you're serving people. But it's a hands-on, totally committed lifestyle. You cannot take it for granted for a minute.
Right.
Not that anything terrible happens to you in that moment, but there can be an accumulation of like, it's a landmine kind of business. There's always something out there, from how you're cooking the food perhaps, to how your relationship is to the clients, to how you're keeping the place clean,
Right.
and you're dealing with a lot of practical things, I guess is what I'm trying to say, besides serving that great food.
Right, and then you add to that mix something which is a core of your personal belief, which is to go sort of like straight down the vegan road.
Right.
And were you concerned at that point about how is this going to affect the business?
I was at times, because when I did the very first one, I did a combination of groceries, vitamins, and food.
Mm-hmm.
But, I guess I'll take credit for this. I saw the trend was towards the food part,
Right.
in that operation. That was a small place, no bigger than this room, and people from all over the country, all over the world were finding their way there to get their fresh juice. So again,
Right.
the interaction, it's a great question, but I think it was more like osmosis for me in terms
Yeah.
of how it got, and I did make it more of my lifestyle. I wound up living above the restaurant, so
Which is, so, it's beautiful because this is bootstrapping, but. You have a great story.
Yeah.
It's bootstrapping with a little bit of divine intervention, like in those early days. So,
yeah, two bits of divine
Right,
intervention.
exactly.
This
So
lovely lady, Joy Pearson, who, after 25 years this last year, we hooked up and got married. So
Right.
we're not only in relationship, but in business together, too. But in 1993, I bought a New York State lottery ticket, combining her birthday numbers and mine. And we won $53,000 in the New York
love
lottery.
that.
As I told you before, we could have won as much as $300,000, but there were 6 winners that night. So that literally was the seed money for creating Candle Cafe, which was the bigger operation that happened in 1994.
Right. So that was the original restaurant over at,
Right.
which is
71st and Lexington.
71st and Lex. And but that's not what it's not still a 70. It's on Second now, isn't it?
That's gone. There's a
Right.
shoe store there now.
Oh, right. Okay. So that moves you into Candle Cafe with this. You've got a partner now, and then you've got all of a sudden it looks like the universe said, "You guys need to do this. Here's some money to get you rolling." So, which brings up a bunch of different questions. One, you're working with somebody who is not just your business partner, but your life partner
Right.
for going on 25 years
Yeah.
now. What's that like?
We're very lucky. I mean, we have our moments. We say this isn't working. How can it be? We also have a 25-year age difference in our relationship. So I think the biggest difference we have is taste in music. I need my Mozart and my
So
Bach,
whose is better?
and she's likes R&B. But it's we live and breathe it. I mean, we've been very, very lucky. We wake up most days saying how lucky we are. Not easy by name. I don't mean that part. That part's really sweet and great.
Right.
But we're willing to take it to the edge in terms of business and relationship, and be okay with that.
Right.
You know, if she's uncomfortable with something, or I'm uncomfortable about the business or about our person, we're really able to bring it to the table pretty fast.
So I guess the old adage, like what's the secret of a good marriage is communication.
Right.
You ramp
Yeah.
that up, magnify it
Yeah.
a number of times when it's business and
Exactly.
business and pleasure, relationships.
Yeah.
What would have happened, do you think, if you hadn't gotten that chunk of money?
That
do you
windfall.
Do you think you still were going in this direction?
Right. Well, as I said at that time, to give it a context, we needed $300,000 to open the next place.
Okay.
So the lottery bought us, 53
A
of
piece
that.
of it, right.
So happily, we had friends, family, and loved ones, and clients who believed in us. And we had an incredible bunch of lottery that way, in a different sort of way. We had
Right.
people give us 10,000, 25,000. The last 5,000 came from a cashier who ran to her bank to pull out $5,000 to give us. And today she's married with children, living happily and successfully. She was like a pivot person. But I think maybe the underneath of a lot of what I love about you, Jonathan, and when things do come together, sometimes it's not explainable, but there is some kind of symbiosis that occurs, makes the right person show up at the right time.
Yeah.
And that was it. I mean, we lived on credit cards. We did that other thing you hear about with entrepreneurs. And the first 2 years of building the Big Candle Cafe,
Right.
the business didn't exactly translate from the other one, even though it was 10 years old. So
Right.
we didn't even take salary for 2 years. We were living on credit cards and handshakes and
Right.
a good reputation.
Yeah, and that's a tough place to be,
Yeah.
and anyone who's started anything deeply meaningful without, getting a huge bunch of money from somewhere else or a giant loan has been in that position.
Right.
And especially that, in this business, in this city, what was the turning? So you said you were sort of in that place for about 2 years. What was the turning point? I mean, was there a time where you knew, you started to feel like, okay, this is actually, we're coming out of this and this is going to work?
Right. Well, that could be a whole other interview in itself. Of course, I'm trying to have tactile memory of those. It was pretty frightening. It was pretty scary because we didn't like owing money anyway with friends and family.
Sure.
But it was very motivating at the same time. But we just kept having mini miracles all the way. One of them being one of the other, I'll call investors, had given us over $30,000. And a year or two into the project, she said she canceled the debt. She didn't want the money back
Wow.
because she was so committed to who we were and what we were doing. It has some religious thing attached to it too, but
I think it's a really powerful point that a lot of people don't focus on, and that's, it seems like the universe started to rally to support you in so many
Exactly.
different ways. And without going, you and I could go way down
Right.
the woo-woo train, but to sort of keep it more mainstream, I think because this was a manifestation, it wasn't just a business idea like, hey, I think there's a market for this
Right.
in New York.
Right.
This was like a living, breathing manifestation of who you enjoy work. You live it, you breathe it.
Sure.
And I mean, I've always believed that people feel that, they sense it, and because there's so little of that in the world, when they see that, they want to be a part of it. I mean, have you experienced that?
Very much so, yeah. Joy uses an expression we both learned in a workshop once. Once you commit, Providence provides. And I think what you may want to be open to, which I can be, is that it may come in forms you don't even realize. While we're building the place, I always use that metaphor, like people were all around me constructing the place, right? And somebody needs a Phillip head screwdriver, and walks somebody wearing the thing, and we get a Phillip head, So, but I think you have to be able to recognize that that's going on and embrace it, and not depend on it totally either.
Right.
There's a whole practical side to this, but here it is 18 years later from that unit, and today I can get $1 million on my handshake,
Right.
literally, from banks and private. So, but I never take that for granted either. I
Right.
mean, it's just something that happens. And there's no end result with this. It's an ongoing process, as you know. It's not like you arrive once. Some days I like to think, my ego goes, oh, Bart, you got it down, forget it. Let them do it now.
Yeah.
I'm always doing that at age 75. Like I said, I don't want the Phillips head screwdriver anymore.
I hear you. So there's this sort of sense of divine intervention when you're doing something that's really powerfully aligned with who you are. But at the same time, like you said, look, this is a real business with real bills and real money that has to come in, real money that has to go out. So you have to get really practical. As you were growing, one of the things, so when I look at what you've built, it's not a restaurant or a couple of restaurants. To me, it's a family, it's a mission. There's a philosophy that fuels the people, so as you're looking to grow this thing of yours, how do you figure out who you want to bring into your circle to help you grow it, from the person who helps mop the floors to the person who's managing your money?
Incredible question. I mean, it's once we establish it being our lifestyle choice, once again, we did attract a cadre of people, some of which you've already met here, that were attracted to what we were doing. But I think in the end, if you should wait to the end, one of the frustrations about this whole process I'm sort of bragging about is sometimes it's difficult to find people that share your mission. Yeah. So at times, we develop people and we bless them all. I've lost many of them to a Broadway show, or the people in the restaurant business very often have dual careers, so it's not like they're totally committed to that. But happily, we've had staff anywhere from 10 to 26 years with us.
No kidding.
Our head chefs have all been here 10 to 15 years.
That's
We're already hiring their children.
Right.
Literally, we got that going on.
That's
too.
amazing.
But I mean, when the attractive, I don't know. I think Joy and I were just so nose to nose with the and we thoroughly love the food, by the way. There's no doubt that.
Well, and obviously, I mean, it stands to reason no restaurant is going to survive in New York beyond a very short window if the food isn't phenomenal and if just the experience isn't phenomenal. It just doesn't happen. So obviously, like, that's a given, which is interesting too, because for now, like a strict vegan restaurant, the association that most non-vegans have is not good.
Right.
And the amazing thing is that you can come into any of these places, and it doesn't, like, I wouldn't tell anybody that, hey, we're going to Candle, it's vegan.
Got it.
Because they wouldn't care, because the food, everything here is so phenomenal. But I want to circle back, though, to just to go a little bit deeper on the people that you bring in. What do you look for, and what's important to you when you're looking at those people, no matter who it is? If it's the person behind the bar or the person serving. What is it? I mean, is it something tangible? Is it ethereal? What is it?
Right. Well, it's my favorite part of the New York Times on the weekend, by the way. They do interviews with entrepreneurs, and they very often ask that kind of question, like, what are you asking in an interview, and that kind of thing. Off the top, I'm saying I need to be won over a little bit.
Yeah.
I could be a little stringent and tough in a very objective way, I think a lot of people don't know how to present themselves properly, even though they might want to be on board with us. They just don't. They don't have the skill set to make that process be a little easier, a little faster. I'm just thinking about the ones I've taken on through the years. I think what's happened very often is the one that sort of attracted me to Joy in the very beginning. You know what she said to me? What can I do to help you?
Nah.
Now, what can I do for you? And that's stuck with me for 25 years about her. And you don't hear that too often if you think about that. We don't have to go into that too deeply now.
No,
but in life, most people, like even in the hiring process to this day, we feel that most of what I'll have to call the younger generation is immediately looking at what's in for them. As a young guy with many kinds of jobs, I always went to places that were already busy. And I wanted to offer my experience, my energy to that busyness.
Right.
And in each case, it developed into more. So if there's many lessons here today in this thing, I think I'd like to give that one out there. Go in with what you can give. Don't say, what are you going to do for me?
Right. Which is obviously, we all come with some level of self-interest, and we're human.
Yeah. You need a salary.
But I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I've had businesses, and I look for things, and it's the same thing. It's like I'm looking for somebody who's there to serve, who believes in what I believe in, and is there to serve, buys into the bigger mission, and says, okay, I want to go along on this ride, and I want to serve you. I want to serve the effort. It sounds like you're saying essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
And my guess is that when you find people like that, those are
it's
a lot
very
of people
attractive.
that have been
It's
with
very
you for so
attractive.
long.
Right. Very attractive.
Yeah.
Because the mission is big. I mean, to go back to sort of the beginning of our company, people who are taking this into their lives as a lifestyle choice, which, by the way, is mostly women, I must say. About 80% of the client base are women. And we have found that most of the clients who come here they're not vegetarian necessarily.
Right.
They just love the food.
Right. And it's got to make them feel good, even if they're not
Sure
vegetarian,
does.
that they're eating something
Right.
clean and healthful,
Mhm.
and it's good for them. Especially we're on the Upper East Side of New York City right now, which is, it's a big family neighborhood.
Right.
And I'm sure you have a lot of moms in that sort
Without
of
a
like
doubt,
women
yeah.
clientele. Do you see them bringing their kids in and trying to get their kids
For sure.
exposed to this early on in life?
We see that part, and then we see around, well, all the time, but mostly around holidays when the college-age kids come home, who are committed, I must say, somewhat to which is beautiful, to the animal rights movement, as well as veganism. They bring their parents in,
Right.
and then they become, we do comment cards in the room. We must have shopping bags full of them. 99.99 are like incredible, beyond positive. I had one a week or so ago where we asked someone, where did you find out about us? And they said, in a hot tub in Cabo, New Mexico, or Cabo, Mexico. I mean, come on. One lady, how'd you find out about us? Oh, from a falling star, she said. I mean, there's a little book. We could compile those comment cards. It's sweet,
Right.
sweet stuff. that
You should
people
take
say.
those and make a book out of the
Well,
comment
the other
cards.
part,
That'd be
which is
great.
a more serious turn to a lot of what we're talking about, we also address health issues that people have.
Right.
A lot of health issues are brought into the. In fact, remind in the very early days of being in the business, when you asked me so sweetly before what it feel like, a lot more back then and a lot now dealt with how people were feeling in terms of their own health and well-being. In other words, allergies was always a big issue. People couldn't have certain things, and now the big gluten-free part of the business. We have a major commitment to that. So once again, I've given Joy a lot more credit for that part because she's a nutritionist by training. So she brings that venue in, and we welcome people at every level that way,
Right.
and most of them have a good experience.
So I think one of the lessons here, also just from a business standpoint, from an entrepreneurship standpoint, is so many people I think are terrified to really go narrow and deep with what they
Right,
do. They just
right.
want to they want to say, well, who's my customer? Well, it's everybody. It's just people who enjoy great food.
Good point. Mhm.
But I think the bigger message is, yes, okay, it's everybody, but from a really what do I want to be known for standpoint, then the sort of the narrower you go, the more people can say, well, what is Candle? And you're like, who is Bart? And there's a one sentence answer, and it's like, it's fantastic, healthful,
Right.
vegan food in New York City, or some variation.
There's a
of that.
trust word attached
Right.
to it too.
There's people kind of know, they can identify you with you are the best in New York at this, and that's where everyone goes. And I think you guys have done, either intentionally or non-intentionally, just because you believe in what you believe in, from a branding standpoint, a phenomenal job of
Yeah.
building the Candle brand.
Right. We've broken out wholesale now. We have 4 frozen food items being sold in Whole Foods all over the
So
country.
tell me
now,
how
too.
that happened.
Well, from a process, again, through our client base and people we knew in the industry, they were enthralled with what we do and what we make. And I've always wanted to do wholesale, because while I'm sitting here with you now, I got products out there in Whole Foods
Right.
moving out of the box quite nicely, by the way. We've got a ravioli dish out there, a mac and cheese, a stir fry, and a seitan piccata. All vegan and all mostly organic.
Right.
And the response has been really, really good. We have 2 cookbooks backing us up. My Little Affirmation book got published a year or 2 ago. Yeah, the first Candle
Candle
Cafe
Cafe
cookbook,
cookbook.
2003. And Joy's incredible book just came out in November 11 with Angel and Jorge, our 2 head chefs from here.
And you've also got
Ta-da! Well, I had a daily affirmation I used to do and still do at the restaurants on the phone or on the blackboard, like a daily word kind of thing. And someone was kind enough to compile it in book form.
Right.
So I'd like the word of the day.
So let's circle back to this I'm going to call it a brand extension.
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
yeah.
The,
You
the,
said
the
something,
frozen food.
yeah.
So had you been thinking about this for a long time?
I have, because brilliant question. Because a quick aside about that, when you talk about the practical side of doing all this,
Yeah.
like in the very early days, the cafe attempted breakfast. It didn't work. There was no real revenue, and it got in the way of preparing for lunch and dinner. So those are the kind of decisions that Joy and I would say happily are capable of making. And I think a lot of people, like you said, something about people wanting a business to be a certain way, look a certain way. You got to be willing to listen and hear.
Yeah.
I learned that from the health nuts a lot. We all walked around with clipboards to write down, people's requests, and it could have been something very esoteric, like a vitamin without something in it or with something in it. So anyway, I've always been happily prepared that way. So to shift and change with the times, and like even here now, when we first started, we couldn't even handle catering, but now we can. And so, I guess to look at growth within the growth is important. for any entrepreneur, and not just stay with the status quo.
And it sounds like what you're saying also. So you've got like reams of comment cards from the restaurants, and even back in the Health Nuts day, everyone's walking around with clipboards. So, which a huge part of this and a huge part of success in anything is being sort of like flexible enough with your ego and what you believe people want to just like sort of step back, shut up, and listen.
Right. Right.
It sounds like that's been a big thing for you.
Yeah, we wanted to make it a complete dining experience, especially here at Candle 79. We now have a full liquor bar here. Now, that was unheard of in the organic, vegan, vegetarian movement 10 years ago. We always had wine and beer, but we're giving people a complete dining experience.
Right.
We've actually lost people from time to time because they couldn't get a scotch here. They would go next door to a local Italian. So from an entrepreneurship, and we wanted to do it, we did it with an organic statement, though. One of the tequilas that we sell, I think it's the tequila. Whenever we sell a bottle of tequila, a tree gets planted somewhere.
I love that.
So we love all that stuff, too.
Let's pull it back out. Let's zoom the lens out again. The commitment is to the lifestyle, to the earth. It's to something bigger than you. It seems like you're making all these decisions, I mean, does that lead you to make decisions in the business where you end up spending more for certain things, but it's the right thing to do inside?
We sure do. And again, perfect question. I mean, our outreach, Joy does school lunch programs throughout New York City, teaching young children nutrition and plant-based nutrition. Our outreach I'll call it for charities and such like, is enormous. I mean, we not only are we an organic vegan restaurant, but we're part of the green movement, so to speak. And we are told that when you commit to veganism, your carbon footprint is automatically 25% less on the planet, just by your choice of how you're eating. I mean, you can make another to go for that one. But the outreach with the other organizations is quite incredible because they embrace us at a whole other level, meaning of companionship and support. I mean, we belong to entrepreneurial organizations with people like Ben of Ben & Jerry and Tom's of Maine and Stonyfield Yoga. So we all offer kind of what you're doing with me today. We don't rest on our laurels, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah, so let's, I love what you just brought up there. I mean, I love the fact that everything sort of derives from a decommitment to a bigger mission and doing things that are right in the context of that mission, even if it's going to cost you short term.
Exactly.
You just work on the assumption it's the right thing to do, and I'd rather do it right than
do it
wrong. But you also just shared something which I think is so critical, which is finding a small group of people who are sort of similar level or maybe further down the road from you, who are really like-minded to bounce stuff off of.
Yeah.
How did that come
Very
about for
useful.
you guys?
I was always attracted to that. Early on in starting these businesses, I joined something called Co-op America, which got me involved in the whole green movement. In fact, we're going to be doing an event at the Javits Center this on April 22nd. I'm going to be on a panel of people talking a lot about what we're talking about today. And I just was always attracted to it, and I'm so happy I have that in my life. My team knows that, and Joy knows that. She knows that I love interacting with other entrepreneurs, other peers, as you would say. Because, their brain, they've been there,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's just before I came to this meeting with you, I just got off the phone with what I'll call something called Native Energy. We do what's called offsets, and we pay them something that is like a tax write-off against our Con Edison bill, but they put up windmills in the Midwest because of that.
I'm curious also, so you've got these people who are your peers who can kind of share the struggles and the challenges and the ideas at your level. And then you're bringing people in, to work for you. How important do you think it is for them? I mean, are a lot of your employees here for a paycheck, or are most of them here because they live the lifestyle that you live and they buy into the mission, or is it some mix?
A little bit of both. I think now that we're talking almost over a 26-year period, we've had staff members who've gone on to develop their own medical, to go into medicine, and gone on to, one is a well-known nutritionist with the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, which is a big organization in Washington, which fights animal abuse in laboratories. So we've seen that happen. We've lost many of them to family situations, have had to move back or what have you. But I think if there's something permeated the whole thing, it was the feeling that Joy and I gave it an energy that they became part of. And now we're at a stage of the career, which frankly for me is a little more, I'm not as comfortable with it yet, but I'm getting more every day. We've released it to other people to run it for us. So they're not the ones who might be seeing the light bulb out like I
Right.
do, you know.
So tell
but
me
I have to
about
live
that.
with that.
I mean,
well,
how is
like
that
I said,
that
it
you
was
experience
not. I was more, I guess I'd have to say, a control freak, not in a bad way, but I made I think I told you before the interview, you know, the way you have to deal with people now, everything has to be laid out.
Right.
I know that we were somewhat in trouble as a society when we bought a new coffee system a few years ago. It was this big gadget, you know, and obviously the coffee brews right. And at the bottom of the thing, it says, put cup here. Now, where the hell else are you supposed to put the cup? But that's how literal things have to be now. I mean it. I find that people, unfortunately, fall into too much of a pocket or framework. That the biggest challenge we have sometimes, it's a good challenge, is the initial training, the ongoing training, and the fact that we want to give them opportunity to grow with us, you know.
Right. So how much of a commitment do you make to that? I mean, how much is it sort of an ongoing training, both on the business side and on the bigger belief system side?
Very good. Yeah. Well, as you said earlier, we try to be as corporate as we are, but we have the incentives that you're getting in the, what I'll have to call the white collar world. You know, we have 401k plans for staff members, health insurance plans, all that other good stuff that people like and want, you know? And I think that the ones who have, we've had, by the way, the other part of it, we've had many go on to open their own businesses too through the years, entrepreneurs. One of my main guys early on here is in Ohio somewhere with a restaurant. Someone opened one in the East Village. Our dear, very, very first chef, Cliff Prefer, he owns Sacred Chow. That's on Sullivan Street in New York.
So, which brings up another really interesting conversation. You used the term earlier when we were talking about people leaving. We bless them on.
Yeah.
That's an amazing term.
Yeah.
What's the mindset behind that?
I'm very confident. I really am. I feel like I have nothing to lose, other than maybe carrying a shift
Right.
on a busy day or something like
But
that.
it's like I know.
But if people have done it for me, maybe
Right.
that's the more proper.
So it's
That's
kind
why-
of like
so
paying
that-
it forward to a certain
Yeah,
extent.
the mentoring thing I mentioned in that little book I had an article in about mentoring was that when I look back in my life, I was very lucky. I always worked for, well, I'm now the older guy, but I always worked for the older guys, all women. I had very influential women in my life, in my 20s and 30s. So I was like a sponge. And Italian-American kid from the Depression-era household, who knows why? I mean, there was something about it that attracted me to it. I think I got my first job as a young boy at 16 by the Children's Aid Society, and I worked on Wall Street in a stationery store, and I got to see the fat cats in Wall Street, and something went bong. In order to be somewhat playing that game,
Right.
I got to work. I got to get better marks in school. Is what I had to do,
Right.
and I did.
So, one of the topics you also brought up is something that you love to do, which is mentoring. And you also mentioned so you wrote a chapter.
Yeah.
So you guys keep putting out books and chapters.
Pours out of us, John.
and
It pours out of
yeah,
us.
like the stack is building over here. And I'm sure there's a lot more in the
Yeah.
brain that'll eventually
Yeah.
go a lot higher. What do you mean by mentoring? Has become kind of like a big catch-all word for a lot of
Right,
people.
right.
To you, what is mentoring to you?
Off the top of my head, a moment-to-moment connection with the person or people. It's a perpetual state somehow. And it's not like I choose the person to mentor. It's sort of, well, there again, back to the beginning, it's almost chosen for me in some ways. They might remind me of something in my life that might, express a kind of enthusiasm that I want to support. It's that cliche of meeting halfway kind of thing, you know.
So when with mentoring, one of the interesting things is that, like you said, I think it has to be it's got to be a commitment on both sides,
Right.
And a serious commitment beyond, hey, let's chat here and there, and I wonder if, to me, when I get the opportunity to mentor somebody, and I'm in heaven because I feel like I can genuinely serve,
Sure.
and when I find people to mentor me, it's an amazing, amazing experience. I feel like I don't see a lot of it happening these days. I mean, for you, obviously, it's something you're just drawn to do.
Right.
What's in the is it generally in the context of work, or is it sort of just in life? Do people come to you in all different things?
In life, I would say, I'll have to use the word, it's a bit old-fashioned in a way, maybe. I'll reveal my whole deck to you. I have 90 people working for me between the two restaurants, and 89 of them can do technology, but I don't do technology.
Right.
I'm a Luddite, so I barely have a phone. So I'm still doing it in whatever embracing way my mindset tells me to do it.
Right.
So I used to have them do stuff for me, because they say, "Oh, can you pull up that email for me, or can you send that email for me?"
But at the same time, Candle has a great website. You
Without a
have
doubt.
people on social media. I mean,
Right.
Candle Cafe is tweeting every day. They're
Exactly.
on Facebook.
Yeah.
So you
I was willing to release
right.
that.
So maybe it's not you, but like you release it and you give it to somebody.
I
And
love it.
and you
I
recognize
love
that
it.
it's something that's
right, and I
valuable.
feed into it literally
Right.
and figuratively about, hey, by the way, like on Valentine's Day, which just passed. Each year we get an overflow like of 100 people. So I put out to my team, call those 100. I mean, get their names and let's offer them something for the next time they come back. There are moments you can't waste in a business. Right? It's an important one to have as an underlying theme for a lot of what we're talking about. Meaning there are things that'll come to you so dramatically sometimes, and if you don't recognize it and utilize it, you could lose it. Like that was like an overflow crowd. I mean, who wouldn't want that
Right.
anywhere in life? But give them something. Don't disappoint them that they couldn't get at here on Love Night. Coincidentally, as a vegan restaurant, our two busiest days of the year are Valentine's Day and Thanksgiving. So figure it out. Well, they'll say that. Yeah. Well, the people who committed to it,
Right.
they want to be in a place that supports
Right.
their lifestyle.
No, that's great. Let's wrap up, kind of coming full circle
Sure.
to what you guys are about to do. So, two successful restaurants. By the way, I mean, we used to live in this neighborhood years ago.
Right.
And this was like the dead spot.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, this was the place where nobody could get anything to work. And then you guys show up, and all of a sudden,
yeah.
the energy changed, something shifts in the earth, and you guys are rocking out.
Yeah. Well, it was a 2-year window again,
Right.
though. It wasn't an overnight.
But I mean,
thing.
you guys knew this too, because you know the neighborhood.
Right.
Did that make you nervous?
Not so much, because two quick stories about that. The reason we took on the second restaurant in the neighborhood, we thought we were losing our other one. It was
Okay.
a dirty deal made with the landlord and a neighbor. Anyway, that fell through, so we kept that and we got this.
Right.
But we also had a Feng Shui master working with us, Judith Wendell of Sacred Currents, and she's working with us now in the new operation and here.
Right.
And we got major press in the Times about, will the Feng Shui turn the curse around? And that was 8.5 years ago.
Right,
So-
because I remember it was like this was the cursed spot, and
Yeah.
now it's
I know.
knock
Well, it's
on wood,
difficult. It's not
obviously,
easy
but-
because, as you know, you're sitting upstairs in a 2-level restaurant,
Right.
which has its own challenges. But
Yeah.
we can make that another story.
So let's go full circle here now to you're 2 or 3 weeks away from. You've got 2 successful restaurants. You
Right.
guys have been doing this for a couple of decades now. You're rocking out. You've branded out. You've got books. You've got frozen entrees in major markets across the country. And now you're opening in 2 or 3 weeks.
Yes.
a third restaurant. Why?
Well, make that a big why. 2 quick things on that. Again, we've had West Side requests for 10 years probably.
Yeah.
People pounding on the door, when are you coming west? And we really found a sweet spot that said, all right, come on. We took over a restaurant that pre-existed. It was in pretty good shape. We find it out, we're renovating and redoing, floors, bars, and kitchens. So it's a lot more work than we thought. But we're really doing it to kind of summarize, I think, a lot what we've talked about. The mentoring piece, especially for Joy and the team. And we have a lot of team members who are ambitious. They want to see it grow. They're ready to make it a prototype for 20 more.
So you
So
have
I
people,
thought, I'll be 100 by the time
Right.
you get there, guys.
So in a way, it's all part of it is a commitment to the people that have been with
Right,
you
right.
to give them a place to grow
Exactly.
into. Yeah.
To stretch their talents and show that they can do even more.
Right.
And that, by the way, is a summary for me, is what the brilliance of this industry is, how far the preparation and the quality of the food has come because of what's available now from local farms. We do that whole thing too, by the way, local farms,
Right.
about 10 months out of the year. It's very exciting. You can
Yeah.
hear my excitement.
No, I know. You rate it. You've been doing this for a lot of years. A lot of people would be burned out, but you're like,
Well,
obviously, it's not always, every day isn't always
Well,
easy,
I said
but-
to Joy when I passed one day, I want to have a bench in the park, and it should say on it, his batteries were included.
I love that. It's probably a good place for us to wrap also. I want to thank you so much. And I
Thank
could
you.
just
What
talk
a
for hours,
pleasure.
and we have in the past. And Candle Cafe, Candle 79, and have you...
Candle Cafe West.
Candle Cafe West will
Right.
be the name. Check it out if you're ever in New York City. Amazing energy, amazing food, amazing people. And come say hi to Bart, and you may see Joy
Yes.
floating around as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.